Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Reform Dallas election series. My name's Taryn Almendarez, and with me, eventually, will be Micah. We'll be your moderators for tonight. We'd also like to introduce Millie Domenech and Soraya Santos, who will be helping us with timekeeping and technical duties. Just so you know, Reform Dallas is an informal organization of Dallasites that's committed to honest and transparent local government. You may be one of the 12,000 members of our Reform Dallas Facebook group. If not, we would love for you to join us. We also offer independent journalism on the web, where you'll find the city's very best guide to our municipal elections. Check it out at reformdallas.io. That's reformdallas.io. Reform Dallas does not make candidate endorsements, although our members have opinions like everyone else. The point of these forums is to let candidates speak to all of us and to take their best shot at earning our vote. We want this to be a fair and illuminating experience for everyone here. So we'll have two segments tonight. In the first segment, each candidate gets a short intro, and then we'll move on to prepared questions that each candidate will answer. For segment two, we'll open up for audience questions, so stick around for that. Please, again, submit your questions to Soraya in the Zoom chat panel at any time, and we will call on you in the second segment to pose your question to the candidates. One last thing, we will be publishing the recorded forums on our website and in the Facebook group. So by participating tonight, you expressly give us permission to do just that. With that, here are your candidates for District 7. Calvin Johnson, Changa Higgins, and Adam Bazaldua have graciously joined us tonight. Welcome. Kevin Felder, Donald Parrish, Tremonica Brown, James Turknett, and Israel Varela were also extended invitations but declined to attend.
Okay, and here we go. Candidates will give you 2 minutes for each of your answers and introductions. You'll have 2 minutes to tell us who you are and why we should want to vote for you. We'll start in ballot order. Calvin, go ahead, 2 minutes.
Okay, my name is Attorney Calvin D. Johnson. I'm a native of District 7. I'm running for District 7 because I want to actually take some experienced leadership down to the Horseshoe. I'm a District 7 native. I went to high school at the High School for Public Services, Government and Law. I have a political science degree in history and political science. I have a bachelor's degree in history and political science. I'm a local attorney here. I've been practicing law for 20 years. So I knew one day that I would run for city council, and that's what I'm doing right now. The first thing I want to do is try to, shore up our public safety, and try to make sure that our streets are safe, and also try to bring some accountability to the city council. I think in the past we've had and elected a lot of people that were just shysters, people that took bribes, people that took money from places that they should take money from. We should need to bring some common sense leadership back to Dallas and District 7. And we need to try to get in the community to try some things different, like mentoring programs. We need to try to develop a better relationship with law enforcement. And we need to try to weed out the corruption in the city and actually have the city assist the people that live here in a better way and fashion. So I think I could bring that based on my history as an attorney. I also worked for the Teachers Union once before, so I have history to running large organizational things that with a lot of people in it. And so I want to try to come in here and try to see what I can do to bring the city into a better way, into a better position moving forward. That's the main reason why I'm running, to try to make sure that we kind of stop this crime and try to reduce this crime. And also, just try to make the city a better place, because I've known the district and I've lived in the district for the majority of my life. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Calvin. Changa, you're next. 2 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and why voters should support you.
My name's Changa Higgins, and I'm running because I have always thought that I could get more done outside of City Hall than inside City Hall. I never wanted to be a politician, never wanted to be an elected official, but as many of you know, the ground shifted on us politically, socially, culturally in the summer of 2020. And I was out on those streets, and like a lot of people in this city, I was demanding for us to reimagine how we look at how we keep our community safe with public safety. I was demanding for the people to have a bigger role in the budget process in this city. And what we got after 100+ days, really like 130 days of protest, is we got nothing from our city leadership. And that made me realize that it was time for me to step up and be the change that I've been saying that I needed to see from city council, because obviously we couldn't get it from our current leadership. And so because of that, that's why I'm here. A little bit about me: I'm more than just a policing candidate. I've been working in the community for over 20 years on issues stemming from education, civil, criminal justice, police reform, community development, restorative economic development practices, and trying to restore the social fabric of communities like South Dallas Fair Park. I've always been working. This is not about what I'm going to do when I get in office. It's not about what I'm going to do if you give me 2 more years. I'm already working in the community, and my platform shows that, my work shows that. And so all I'm asking is for you all to challenge you all who are going to be voting, that say they want progressive change and tangible results that you can feel, is to change the way that you think about how you pick leadership. And it's time to pick bold, courageous leadership that is not scared to stick its neck out, that is not scared to disrupt, that is not scared to move the conversation to something that can actually lead to progressive change in this city and move the needle for people that need it the most.
Thank you, Changa. As a reminder, try to reduce your background noise. Adam, now 2 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and why we want to vote for you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to first say thank you, Micah, Taryn, Soraya, and the Reform team for hosting this and for all you do to bring accountability to the city of Dallas. I also want to give a shout out to Woolard. I think that he'd be extremely proud at this series that's going on. So my name is Adam Basil-Dua. I'm currently the council member for City of Dallas District 7. I am proud to represent every corner of our district, from Joppy to Bishop Lynch High School, from the Mesquite City line over to South Cedars. We have an extremely diverse district that requires very hands-on leadership to adequately represent everyone in the district. It's something that we've lacked for a long time, and it's something that I feel I have done a good job at, especially despite the challenges that we have been faced with. I'm running for re-election on 3 main priorities. First is public safety, but it is to reimagine public safety. And that's something that I've been saying since the first time I ran in 2017. It's something I continued to push and was able to get $32 million extra dollars added to this fiscal year's budget in alternative initiatives towards public safety. And it's something that we have to be willing to look at through a lens of addressing the underinvested communities and the core problems where crime exists. It's not always about law enforcement. And I believe that we have shown a will and a start to address just that. My second priority is smart growth and economic development. That comes with making sure that we prioritize affordable housing and opportunity for everyone. That means making sure that the growth that we bring in and quality retail is something that is going to be conducive to the existing community and not something that displaces them. Last but not least is transparency.
That was time.
Thank you. And thank you all, candidates. Let's move on to questions. Here are the ground rules. We'll ask a question and each candidate gets 2 minutes to respond. Again, when your time is up, Millie will stop you. If we feel an answer needs a follow-up, we'll ask it and give the candidate a reasonable amount of time to respond. We are interested in your ideas and to know how you'll approach the job, so let's get started. Micah, would you like to ask question number 1?
And our very first question goes straight to Fair Park. The Fair Park Master Plan is poised to transform the city's gym into a year-round destination, but neighborhoods nearby are at risk of being squeezed out by what some see as gentrification. What will you do to balance the need to revitalize the area while avoiding the displacement of residents? The development should be uplifting. Adam, we're going to start with you first. 2 minutes on the gentrification and balancing neighborhood needs.
Thank you for the question. I would like to highlight that, yes, we have recently passed the Fair Park Master Plan. That's one of many that have tried to make it to council. It was passed unanimously, and it was also passed without any opposition from the community. And that was because of the pressure that I made sure to put on our stakeholders and partners in our managing partner agreement within Fair Park First and Spectra, and the importance of getting into the community to be a part of that process. I believe that as long as I continue to lead with the same mindset, which is that I'm not here to make decisions for any particular neighborhood, but I'm here to be the voice for what the neighborhood's overall want and need is, then we will make sure to combat against any development, any deals that are going to come in to infringe on growth that will displace a community. We know the history, the significance of the eminent domain, the uprooting of the Black community in South Dallas just for parking lot that sat empty for years and years. And that is one of the many efforts that's being put forth with this Fair Park Master Plan, which is to give a park back to the community in exactly the same place that the community was stripped away from their rights. I want to make sure that anytime we have development deals that come forward, it's about neighborhood determination. And without neighborhood determination, we don't have real representation. So that's the way that I led over the past 2 years, and that's the way that I intend to continue to lead over the next 2 years.
Thank you, Adam. Changa, 2 minutes for you. The Fair Park Master Plan is poised to transform Fair Park into a year-round destination, but neighborhoods nearby are at risk. What will you do to balance the need to revitalize the area while avoiding displacement of the residents? Developments should be uplifting.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm about relocation. I'm about revitalization without relocation. We know the history of South Dallas Fair Park. We know that between the highway, the bad economic policies and procedures, environmental policies that the city of Dallas has had, have basically eroded the social fabric of South Dallas Fair Park, which is the historic Black community in Dallas, as far as our jewel in Dallas. What I would say is that the Fair Park Master Plan needs to have community oversight. It's great that the plan is there, but if it doesn't have real community oversight, with community stakeholders from around, neighborhood leaders from around in that community and throughout South Dallas Fair Park to sit and be a stakeholder and a partner in the decision-making process of that development, then we get more of the same of what we have historically got in Dallas over and over and over. There are also several tools at our disposal that are like bad words when it comes to our city council and when it comes to the city, like community benefits agreements that can be implemented to help the development have and the folks in the neighborhood have a bigger say and be a stakeholder in the development of how Fair Park moves forward. So I'm always going to be about putting people first. I'm always going to be about making people actual stakeholders in the decision-making process and not making those decisions for them. So I, once elected, you have my word that I will create a community council for oversight over how Fair Park development will happen in the area.
Thank you, Changa. Calvin, you're up. What will you do to balance the need to revitalize Fair Park while avoiding displacement of longtime residents?
But just try to be inclusive. I think one of the problems of the past is instead of asking people what they want, we're starting to tell people what they need, which means we look at a problem and we say, well, they need this over there, they need that over there. No, you got to come to the community. You got to get the stakeholders involved. You got to find the people in the community that everybody trusts, and you want to put those people on board. And you want to get people who have a history of not selling out the community, which means you got to get people who are going to come in and they're going to keep their word, and they're just in it for the community. If you get people that are heavy in the real estate or heavy in some of the other areas, they're just going to get on that board and they're going to create opportunities for themselves and make money. And we're sick of that. And that's how we got to the position we're in. In District 7, we have basically one of the jewels in the entire city. No, we have one of the jewels in the entire state, the Fair Park. And the economic development around that area has been horrible. We need to make sure that we include the stakeholders, which means in that master plan, include more and more things that the community will use on a regular basis, that the community can see. Place people on those boards who are going to keep their word. Place people on those boards who are going to actually have the community interests at heart. In the past, what we've done in Dallas is we've selected a few people from the community, and those people have went in and not did what they were supposed to do. Or we select people in the community, place them on boards, and they're powerless. Give some real power, give some real teeth to the people that we place as decision makers on these boards, and make sure that you're inclusive. Give the people what they want instead of telling them what they need, and you're going to get a better result. And I think that's what we should do. That's my answer.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Our second question is going to be a transit question. Public transportation is particularly important in District 7, home to 3 DART stations, many bus transit centers, more than 15 bus routes that will soon be redesigned in January 2022. What do you see as the most important public transit priorities for your district, and what are your proposals for improvements? Changa, we'll start with you.
Yes, well, first of all, one of the tenets of what I'm going to be doing in my platform when I'm elected is that I'm going to create a community council, something that the incumbent promised but never really materialized, that will actually sit neighborhood leaders, business leaders, church leaders, other stakeholders in the community down, along with city stakeholders, my board appointees and commission appointees. And on a monthly basis, we will do what our elders and our ancestors, who were the most effective folks in District 7 as city council folks done in the past, and that is to have a community advisory council that actually works on policy. So it won't be me making these decisions. I'm just going to be a bridge, not the boss of the district. So I don't have the answer to transit, what's going to happen with improving the transit, but I do know this, as somebody who lived in Ebon Village, as somebody who lived in South Dallas, and took the bus and the train to work every day for over 2 years. And it took me 2 hours to get there in the morning and 2 hours to get back home. I know that the majority of the jobs are located in the northern part of this district, and that even though we have 3 stations, DART is doing a terrible job of making sure that people in my community are able to get over into North Dallas to where the majority of the jobs are in our community. So I know that's going to be at the forefront, because when I'm knocking on doors, talking to people out here, that's what they're talking about, access to jobs. So that would be my first priority there. But even bigger than that priority is we're going to sit down and create policy together. I'm talking about real co-governance, not a promise. This is something that's going to actually happen.
Thank you, Changa. Calvin, you're up next. I'll repeat the question. Public transportation is particularly important in District 7, home to 3 DART stations, many bus transit centers, more than 15 bus routes. They'll soon be redesigned in January 2022. What do you see as the most important public transit priorities for your district, and what are your proposals for improvements?
It's pretty simple. The first thing you got to do is make sure that the community gets the routes that they need so they can get there quickly and efficiently. That's the very first thing you have to do. If you're spending 2 hours, 2.5 hours to travel 10 or 15 or 20 miles, that can't happen. We have to figure out, based on what Dallas is now and how we are situated as a community, where are the people in District 7 going to work at, and how we can get them there quickly and efficiently. We have to go to the community. We have to do surveys. We have to create boards across District 7 that allow those different communities, and we have several different kinds of communities, input to determine which routes are the best, would best service the community. That's the first thing you got to do. The second thing you got to do is safety. And I keep going back to safety because when I talk to some people, they're scared to catch the train. They're scared to catch DART. They're scared to be on DART at night. They're scared to go, if they have to catch DART, end up downstairs in City Place where it can be kind of dark sometimes. They're scared of those things. So we have to look at making people comfortable with actually using the service that DART is providing, because if they're not comfortable, you can build the perfect routes. You can make them get there fast. You can do all those other things. But if you don't make sure that it's safe, it doesn't matter. So we have to create an opportunity, number one, where we find out the best route to get people there the quickest. Number two, we want to make sure that it's safe to use so that more people will actually utilize it. There are just some people that I know that refuse to use public transportation because they don't think it's safe and it takes too long. Simple. It's not that complicated. Get people where they need to get to quickly and make sure it's safe.
Thank you, Calvin. Adam, you're up next. If you don't mind, I'll read the last part of the question. What do you see as the most important public transit priorities for your district, and what are your proposals for improvements?
Thank you for the question. I would say that I'm very proud of a couple of initiatives that were accomplished in my first term, which was to bring the on-demand DART service for seniors. That was first implemented as a pilot program only for the Far East Dallas part of District 7, actually. And it was expanded into South Dallas and has gotten a very positive response. It's a little bit innovative and helps with people with mobility issues. I think that, we have to realize our role, what we're elected in, and how much control we have over DART. So my focus really is how we can help what problems exist. And if the problems that exist are the current bus routes and how long it takes for us to have any mass transit dependent population to get to any livable wage jobs is going across the city, essentially. So we need to be focused and more aggressive in prioritizing bringing opportunity here, in bringing livable wage jobs here, so that the objective isn't only to figure out how to get out of here in order to have those opportunities. In addition to that, we need to be prioritizing walkability and multimodal connections, which is also within our purview as council members to prioritize bike lanes, to prioritize connectors from the loop trail that is now coming into South Dallas, coming in through the entire district, actually from White Rock Creek down all the way to Syene to the Longview station. So when we continue to connect our mass transit opportunities that exist now with multimodal connectors to neighborhoods, that's when we're going to start being innovative and utilizing the tools that we have in our chest to make this thing happen.
Thank you, Adam. We'll move on to question 3, housing. Micah?
All right, on housing. What is your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable and workforce housing in the city, understanding that affordable means different things to different people? Calvin, we'll start with you.
Well, the first thing we got to do is identify who can build quality housing. I think what's been happening in certain parts of the city, we get housing, but it's poor quality. And when you have poor quality housing, 3 or 4 or 5 years later, you're going to start to have problems. So now you're having a problem of keeping that housing. So we got to identify those folks who build quality housing, and then from there, figure out how we can do it economically feasible so that we can get a lot of quality, affordable housing in the community. We also got to start putting pressure on the local banks that take our money. I mean, Bank of America, if you talk to a lot of people in South Dallas and even some of the other areas of District 7, they put their money in Bank of America, but we can't get Bank of America to loan us a dime or give us a credit line. So we got to start figuring out how we can get past the redlining that happens. And particularly in District 7, we got to figure out how we can get around the redlining that's happening in District 7. The other thing we have to do is identify who needs the housing, and then how we can get them the housing and allow them to stay in it. We have a number of issues for people who are homeless or who are underemployed to be able to afford the housing. Sometimes they have other issues that prevent them from being able to afford the housing. So when you start working with that, we have some military folks that may have some mental problems, some other things going on. We have some people maybe that maybe have a drug issue that's going on. Or we might have people who are just great people working hard, but don't have enough money to be able to afford the housing that they need for their family. So we got to assess who needs the housing, what their issues are, what they can afford, and then try to get a mix of housing, not just affordable, low income affordable housing, but some mid-level housing, and then also try to encourage even better housing to be built in our district. So that's how I would approach that program and that problem. First of all, get an assessment. You don't just jump out and shoot in the dark.
Thank you, Calvin. We'll turn to Adam. What is your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable housing in the city, understanding that affordable means different things to different people?
Well, it does. It's a very subjective term, but it does have a definition by federal guidelines, if you will. So when saying affordable, it's not meant to have to be about opinion. It's about what is considered depending on the municipality's market. And there is anything from 0% all the way to 100% or even above 120, 130% of area median income. That's when it's based on when we talk about affordability and regulations on set-asides for certain units. Now, one of the first things that has to be mentioned is the city of Dallas has to be serious about implementing the housing policy that was passed in 2017. It cannot be something that is put on a piece of paper. It has to be something that is held to standard. It's also something that we have to have the same expectation for in all parts of our city. Opportunity that has to be given in all parts of our city. We are talking about the most segregated by design city in the entire country. And again, that didn't happen by accident. And we have to do our part to get away from the intentional concentration of lower socioeconomic communities that continue to be underinvested in. Mixed income models are the only models that have shown proof to work across the country in any city, no matter where we are. We have to be able to challenge our colleagues on the council, just as I did a couple of weeks ago to approve a affordable housing project that was coming to Lake Highlands in District 10. That was the first affordable housing project that had been proposed for this district since 1990. Then it was killed down at the legislature. We still did our part at the city's level to try to get our spread that we are
I
providing
believe that's time, Adam. Thank you.
throughout our city of Dallas.
Chonga, we'll turn to you. What is your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable and workforce housing in the city of Dallas? Understanding affordable means different things to different people.
Well, I think first we got to start there, Micah. That affordable means different things to different people. And like I've said, I am about rooting our conversations in what the people who need change on the ground the most need. And first of all, what we call affordable housing here is not a reality for most of the people that live in our district that are working families and are struggling to find good housing, right? So yeah, we know technically what AMI is. We know how this is all set up, but the reality is that the current setup and structure and the whole model is set up to benefit developers and not the people, right? So we got to have council, we got to have leadership in there that's willing to disrupt. We got to have that conversation and demand that we get an affordable housing definition that fits the people who need it the most in our district. And right now, that's just not happening. I know people who are doing everything they're supposed to be doing, working 2 jobs, and those aren't living wage jobs, right? Both parents, two income homes where both parents are working 2 jobs, and they still don't have enough money to afford to live in South Dallas Fair Park where they grew up, right? So that's the kind of challenges that we're dealing with. So we have to, first of all, being bold enough and courageous enough to push for us to change that model. And yes, I know some of that is state level responsibility and some of it's on the county, but we can still be an advocate and push and fight and be courageous for our community to make that happen. Also removing the barriers. There's so many Black builders and developers that grew up in South Dallas Fair Park who have all these barriers put in front of them down at City Hall to do community-based development that starts with people in the community and that is focused around making affordable housing that people in the community can afford that want to stay and live in South Dallas Fair Park. And so I feel like that's the first step. Those 2 things are the first steps to seeing some real change, because we're blocking a lot of innovation with the barriers that we're setting up for people who want to come in, not just Black builders and community-based folks, but people who want to come in with innovative models and ways to build affordable housing that people can afford.
Thank you, Chonga. We'll turn to Tyron.
All right, gentlemen. Question number 4 is going to be a public safety question. Back the blue. Defund the police, fund the communities. Reimagine public safety. There are any number of slogans that all speak to one core sentiment. Many people in Dallas feel that we need new approaches to addressing crime and inequality in our neighborhoods. What are your specific budget priorities for public safety? What changes would you propose? And how will those ideas improve public safety in District 7? We'll start with you, Adam Basildua.
Thank you for the question. Again, this is about underinvestment in communities. Just yesterday, we passed a resolution about equity. Equity is something that it would be a good word to have as the take a drink every time you hear it drinking game, when you listen to a council meeting, because you're bound to hear it multiple times. But it's more than just a word. The city of Dallas has shown that it's nothing more than a word. And even with the resolution that we've passed as a council, it means nothing until we get to budget season and see if we put our money where our mouth is. Equity has to be approached through a lens that differentiates a narrative that this city has been founded on, which is equality. This equality of having 14 invisible lines of a constituency that's supposed to get equal of everything out of a budget just doesn't work. And you look at plenty of districts that have enough. We have to be able to compensate and supplement for those who don't have enough. And until we start intentionally investing in righting the wrongs that exist in opportunity for livable wage jobs, youth resources and programming, lighting, and revitalization of blight in concentration of lower socioeconomic communities, improved infrastructure like just basic quality of life in sidewalks. These are the things that are considered to be something to desire as a luxury, but things that are given to every other part of the city as an expectation. That we have to approach equity.
Thank you. Thank you, timekeepers. Thank you, Adam. Changa, I'll repeat the question. I'll repeat the last part of the question. Many people in Dallas feel that we need new approaches to addressing crime and inequality in our neighborhoods. What are your specific budget priorities for public safety? What changes would you propose, and how will those ideas improve public safety in District 7?
That's like 3 questions in one. But I would say, first of all, you know, I always say conversations are power. We need people around the horseshoe having the right conversations about public safety. Right now, public safety is a very police-centric conversation. When you see innovation and people trying to come in and propose from community groups to even the Office of Police Oversight, we get pushback from our council on recommendations that will push public safety forward, even from the incumbent. So we got to start with that conversation, first of all, right? More police officers on the street has not reduced crime. It has not made the murder rate go down. It's time to figure out some new tools to solve these old problems, and these problems are systemic problems. So I would say, first of all, we need leadership down there that is willing to push the envelope on changing the conversation about policing. We need people who are going to push the envelope on changing the conversation about how our community, District 7, is perceived by the rest of the city. We can talk all day about equity. We can talk all day about the history of discrimination and racism in this city. But really, the reality is that we're going to have to reinvest into our community. So I'm proposing that that we begin where we left off in summer 2020, right? There's some unfinished work. There's some unfinished business that we have to do. We haven't forgot about it. I haven't forgot about it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And so we need to start there. We need participatory budget. We need a participatory budget where the community is actually a part of the say-so of what is going to happen with our budget, and that's citywide. And so until we talk on those things, you know, budget recommendations about how to, you know, reallocate money, best invest means nothing until the people actually have the power to affect the budget cycle in the city.
Thank you, Changa. Calvin, I'll ask you the question. Many people in Dallas feel that we need new approaches to addressing crime and inequality in our neighborhoods. What are your specific budget priorities for public safety? What changes would you propose, and how will those ideas improve public safety in District 7?
Well, the first thing we're gonna have to do is we gotta accept some innovation. There are some things in law enforcement and public safety that sometimes maybe they don't want to do, but it's been shown to reduce crime. So they need to start accepting more innovation. There's going to be change. The status quo is not going to work. However, we have to be honest in Dallas. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I know what kind of cases are coming in my office. I know how things work at the courthouse. I know what people are doing when they're doing the crimes that they do. So I have a unique perspective that a lot of people don't have. Don't get me wrong. I understand that there are a lot of people that are in favor of defunding the police. I don't think that it should be called that. We should have to figure out a way to use the police department in a different way. One of the things that I would do, which would be quite innovative, out in Los Angeles, I think they do some of this. They roll some of those social services and some of those other things inside of the police's budget, and they include the police in some of those things. We have to look at, and I'm saying we have to do that, but we have to look at that to see if that's an option for us to be able to try to do some things like that. We got to do some things differently. We cannot continue to do what we're doing right now. But the other thing that we got to do is we got to realize this: the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area is the largest metropolitan area after LA, New York, and Chicago, which means if you do too much, too soon, too quickly, the crime will balloon, the crime will mushroom. So we need to figure out how we can do it, implement this change, but to implement this change to where we try to reduce crime and that we involve the community. One thing that I will try to do, my slogan for running is called "It's on Us," which means we got to make the community stakeholders more involved in public safety. I think we need to upkick our mentoring programs. I think that we need to start doing the police athletic leagues more. I think we need to figure out ways we can keep our recreation centers open a little longer, get some of our community people in there, so we can keep these kids out of trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Now we're going to talk more about the budget. Apart from the police department, what specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if elected? What are your priority budgets? What are your budget priorities for District 7? Calvin, we'll start with you.
Well, we got to front end a lot more social services. We got to figure that out. We got to figure out why on the back end, and instead of throwing all this money into the police department, we want to create an opportunity where maybe people commit less crimes or people have the resources they need so that they don't resort to that kind of stuff. So we got to figure out how we could be, number one, more inclusive and put a lot more money in front end programming so that we can reduce some of the issues with crime. And when it comes to gentrification, we want to make sure that people in District 7 in particular, that they feel like they're part of revitalization or and part of rebuilding the community. So we need to create programs that allow those folks to have tax breaks and to get short-term loans to be able to fix the properties up that they do own, so that they can be a part of the revitalization that's going to happen in District 7, as well as the revitalization that's going to happen in the city. The other thing that we got to start doing is we just got to start investing in our streets and our city services a lot better. I mean, when you look at the pothole issues that we have in the city, and to some people that may be small, but it cost me 2 tires about a month ago. And those types of things, if you're a working family and you driving a pothole, that can destroy your budget for the month. We got to get back to making sure that the city services are delivered efficiently. The city of Dallas has outsourced a lot of services, saying that they were going to save us money, but they really don't. All they do is give us less service for the same amount of money or more. And then you don't have the people that are working for these companies that are invested. Those companies actually, I'll give you an example. What those companies do, you outsource the work, they pay their workers less, they provide less benefits, and now those people are not as dedicated to doing the job that you're paying them to do. We got to clean up our city. We got to be innovative, and that's what I would try to do with the budget.
Thank you, Calvin. I want to remind all of our candidates that we are looking for some of your specific ideas throughout the night. And we'll repeat the question now. Apart from the police department, what specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle? And what are your budget priorities for District 7? Adam, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I would like to honestly first address our 911 call center. That is something that we cannot look at alternative response to public safety. We cannot even look at metrics of success in an expansion of right care to give better solution for mental health in our city if we do not have the ability to dispatch to these issues. Also, DFR and EMS are dispatched to every single call that comes into 911. And sometimes these calls can be the determining factor of life and death. too often in my first term has it just become a norm in our city to be put on hold with 911. And after digging into it, it's because we have a position, a department that is not civil service protected, that they do not have anyone fighting for, that are underpaid and high stressed. And we have a huge turnover rate that is very inconsistent in giving us results. If that is going to be the point of where we trickle from, I think that we need to be prioritizing that much more. Other priorities that I have is to continue expansion of the hotspot rental program that we started 2 years ago and have continued to expand. I believe that we will now have we do budgets in 2 years, so it is somewhat baked. I'm happy to see that we are going to be doubling from 5 right care teams to 10. So I will make sure that that stays in the budget. It doesn't go to the chopping block for mental health response. And I want to continue to help revitalize the dilapidated and crumbling shopping centers around District 7 that have become problematic properties and nuisance to surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And Changa, you're up. Apart from the police department, what specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if elected? And what are your budget priorities for District 7?
So budget priorities for District 7 would be to, kind of like Calvin Johnson said, is to expand social services and investing more in social services. So expanding the right care program, mental health services, youth services, youth employment services. We live in a district where it's between young people between 16 and 24 years old is at over 50% unemployment, right? And so when we talk about making our community safe, we need to give young people things to do. And so allocating money to that, and also homeless, houseless services for youth, for LGBTQ community and other marginalized folks who are really experiencing some serious issues, and particularly after the winter storm even exacerbated it even more. I think that these are budget items that need to be priority. Subsidies for people who are in the middle. They're not low income, but they don't make a lot of money, but they live in South Dallas Fair Park. They're trying to get their homes fixed up. They're trying to stay in those homes. Their parents built those homes. Their grandparents built those homes, and they want to keep them, and they want to stay in South Dallas, but they can't get quality repairs done. They're worried about the escalating taxes because the property value is going up. We need to help those people. We need to put pressure, and also I would say expand the lighting program. The southern sector of Dallas is too dark, and we know that we see 15 points decreases in violent crime and crime in places that are well lit. So as well as putting money into mutual aid programs. And these are not specific programs. I'm talking about making a program that actually helps the people who were on the ground during this storm, the people who have been coming out since this pandemic, mutual aid organizations, nonprofits from all around the city that aren't getting any funding from any city resource, to give them the ability to get funding and coordinate their efforts and into.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Changa.
Thank you.
Taryn is up for our very next question.
Alrighty, y'all. This is going to be an environment question. Joplin is located in District 7, and it is among the most polluted in Dallas. How would you ensure that our poor and minority neighborhoods do not continue to be disproportionately subjected to environmental hazards? Adam, you'll go first.
So I will say that I am proud to have been alongside residents in Joplin just about 3 years ago in the fight to go against the batch plants that were being proposed there by Union Pacific and Martin Marietta. I was the chair of the Dallas Green Alliance at the time, and I am happy to have put enough pressure with the public to my predecessor, who ended up flopping his stance and also going against the batch plants to get them from being denied, which was a huge win for the community. We have got to approach this industrial zoning next to residential communities with with a level of importance and understanding of what it is that has occurred for so long. We need to make sure to prioritize transit-oriented development, which is something that was a project with UTA Arlington students to bring in ideas to present to the Joppy community. I have been happy to work with the Joppy community on how we can bring in some mixed use development for the Joppy community and start to build up and holistically change the zoning while at the same time denying any of the industrial uses that come forward as proposals for the Joppy community. We have to address the zoning along 310 to not expand and encroach more into the residential community, and make sure that there's an area plan conducive to the growth that Joppy would like to see that does not impede more on the quality of air and the overall environmental injustice that has taken place in the Joppy community for decades.
Thank you, Adam. Changa, you're going to be up next. I'll reread the question. Joppy, located in District 7, is among the most polluted areas in Dallas. How would you ensure that our poor and minority neighborhoods do not continue to be disproportionately subjected to environmental hazards?
Well, this is something that's been a big deal for me for many years. As the leader of Unify South Dallas over 10 years ago, this was a big part of the South Dallas Action Plan, and it was to remove heavy industry from our communities like Joppy, who's bearing the brunt of basically racist zoning and land use policies with the city of Dallas, right? Let's just call it what it is. It's time for us to get real about this. What's happening in South Dallas Fair Park when it comes to environmental injustice and the way that we have allowed the oversaturation of heavy industry is criminal. And we need leadership that is willing to say it's criminal, and to, if we have to, sue on behalf of the community to change it. We need the heavy industry out of there. It is locking our communities, zoning that can't go. We can't even talk about mixed use until we get them out of there. And then we need a real remediation plan once they're gone to remediate the land so it can be revitalized and changed into something. That's a long-term process. So that's what I'm proposing. I am actually endorsed by Downwinders at Risk. And that's one of the reasons why they endorse me, because they know I've been a champion for this. They know that for years I've been talking about this. I've been with them doing air quality and other things in areas around South Dallas, not just Joppy, about this issue. And it's time for us to treat this like a criminal issue. It's time for us to get justice for Joppy and other communities that have bore the brunt of the city's mess. And it's time to get it taken care of.
Thank you, Changa. And Calvin, rereading the question here for you. Joppy, located in District 7, is among the most polluted areas in Dallas. How would you ensure that our poor and minority neighborhoods do not continue to be disproportionately subjected to environmental hazards?
Well, the first thing we got to do is stop the illegal dumping. And I think that's something that nobody here has talked about, right, in this portion. We got to stop the illegal dumping. Everybody knows you can go in Joppy, you can go across that bridge, you can leave whatever you want to leave, and usually nobody's going to catch you. So we have to hold the city accountable to make sure that the illegal dumping stops. And I'll tell you how important this is to me. Last night, one of my clients had a bad wreck coming from Joppy over back to South Dallas. You know why she had that wreck? Because there was a giant puddle in the road, or her coming across the bridge. You know why the puddle was on the road? Because somebody dumped a mattress. Somebody dumped the mattress in the drain. So the mattress in the drain created the giant puddle, and this girl turned her car over, and it almost went off the bridge. So this is the kind of stuff that's happening in Dallas. We got to stop. The illegal dumping has to stop. Number two, the heavy industry. If the heavy industry, we got to get them out of here. And if they're going to be here, they got to start benefiting the community. Listen. Heavy industry makes a lot of money, and if they're not, either we need them out or they need to start paying their way. When I say paying their way, they need to start making sure that they invest in that community. They need to create jobs in that community. They need to create centers in that community. They need to create other things financially to build that community up. So if you're going to have a plan over there, at least we can say that you're helping some of the people get out of the situations that they're in, and they make some money. But what's happening is we're allowing ourselves to go over there and get sold out. So we need to start looking at industry over there and making sure that we don't let or continue to let industries that come in that pollute the water, that pollute the land, that create situations where there has to be dumping. We got to cut that out. And we got to elect people that are not just trying to fill their pockets. I'm going to be honest with you. You got other folks that got elected. They got comfy with industry. They took $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 somehow that we don't know about. And that's how a whole community gets screwed for 10 years. We got to stop.
Thank you, Calvin. And we're going to move on to our final question in our moderator questions segment. We are going to reduce the amount of time from here going forward for candidate responses from 2 minutes to 90 seconds. We want to get to as many questions from your constituents, your potential voters, as possible. So we'll go ahead with 90 seconds on redistricting this time. This city council election will be the last one with the current district makeup, and the new council will ultimately vote on the new district boundaries. Let's talk about your priorities and decision-making process on the topic. What is the single most important factor for District 7 in the upcoming redistricting? Adam, we'll start with you.
So I'm a huge fan and supporter of the 14-1 form of government that we have. I think that it's important for us to have adequate representation that reflects the demographic of the constituency that we serve. I think that there's an evolving by the day demographic in District 7. But the one thing that remains true is that we are a majority minority district, which means our representation should be reflected as such. I am proud to have appointed Honorable Ms. Diane Ragsdale for the District 7 Redistricting Commission. I believe that she will be the champion that we need to uphold the values and fight for equity to make sure that no matter what going forward, we will remain a seat around the horseshoe that will represent a minority district. In addition to that, there's a fear for sure that there will be a split up of the neighborhoods that are comprised to make up South Dallas proper and be into two different districts. That's something that I do not want to see happen. And that's something that I know District 7's Commissioner Ms. Ragsdale agrees with. So those are the two priorities that I would like to see with the process.
Thank you, Adam. We'll turn to Calvin. What is the single most important factor for District 7 in the upcoming redistricting?
It's to make sure that South Dallas doesn't get split into two different areas, because for the most part, South Dallas shares the same concerns. So they should not get split up. That's the main concern. The concern for the people in District 7, in particular that area, is they're afraid that they'll get drawn into two or possibly three different directions so their power can be diluted. That's the very same thing that my ancestors fought against. We fought hard against that. I mean, blood was spilled. I mean, people lost jobs, people lost money, people were blackballed because they wanted fairness down at the Horseshoe. So we want to make sure that we keep that from happening. Number two, I'm in favor of leaving the district how it is so that we can start to build some unity. The district has different types of neighborhood. You got Buckner Terrace is one type of neighborhood. You got Joppy is another type of neighborhood. South Dallas proper is another type of neighborhood. Parkdale Longview is a little different neighborhood. But we need to start bringing those areas together. And I think leaving us together, trying to start working in one unified fashion, I think is the best for the district. Because if you start splitting us up, then you're going to be the newcomer to something new or an old comer with less power. So I want to try to keep the district to get together. But the main thing I want to do is make sure that South Dallas is not split, cut up, and so it becomes even more fair for the people, unfair for the people that are in that particular district. That's what I think about District 7.
Thank you, Calvin. Changa, 90 seconds. What is the single most important factor for District 7 in the upcoming redistricting?
Well, I'm glad that the councilman mentioned my mentor, Diane Ragsdale, in 14-1, with my mentors, Roy Williams and Marvin Crenshaw, that pushed for us to have equity in this city. I think that we need to maintain South Dallas Fair Park as one community that when I'm knocking on doors out here, that is the big thing that they're worried about. There are question marks around whether our current leadership is going to be able to do that for them. And so I'm here to fight for them in the spirit of our ancestors and those elders and those community leaders who have fought before. I'm here to do that. And that is the biggest priority in here, is to make sure that South Dallas Fair Park remains one community. Also, that District 7 remains a minority opportunity district, and that there is opportunity still as well for African Americans to actually have an opportunity to be voted in and get the seat. So as the district changes, we don't want, at the expense of the district changing, we don't want the opportunity for less African American representation to be around a horseshoe. I'm not about identity politics, but I am about equity around that horseshoe. And I want to make sure I see African American representation around that horseshoe.
All right, and thank you, candidates. Now we'll move on to our second segment and open it up to our audience for their questions. To start us off, we have some very great questions ahead. Here are the ground rules. For this segment, audience will keep our questions brief so we can get to as many people as possible. There will be no follow-ups, and candidates have 90 seconds to respond. We may reduce that down to 60 seconds so we can get to more questions. All right, our first questions come from Stephanie and Joel. Stephanie, we're gonna bring you on first. If you'll go on unmute. She has a question on homelessness. Stephanie, go ahead.
And I believe Stephanie may have left.
No problem. We're going to go ahead and ask Stephanie's question. What is your plan for reforming the Department of Homeless Solutions? What is needed there? What is your plan for reforming the Department of Homeless Solutions? What is needed there? And that question comes from Stephanie in District 7.
Well, first of all, we got the wrong people making decisions about houseless and homeless people in the city. The people that should be, first of all, when I talk about co-governance and a new style of leadership, I'm talking about bringing people on the front lines, working on these issues every day, down to City Hall and integrating them into the decision-making process of that office. We got people out here who are already solving the problems that the city are trying to solve without resources. We can make this happen if we put our folks that are out here working in these communities every day as a stakeholder in the process, right? And so this idea of the city being a bubble that always keeps organizers and activists and people working on the front lines out, when I get in office, that we're revolutionizing that, we're changing that. And so we'll get the answers that we need. There are people out here already solving the problems, and we need to bring them in the City Hall and have them be partners instead of trying to figure out the solutions, the city trying to figure out the solutions on their own.
Thank you. Adam, your next 90 seconds. What is your plan for the reform of the Department of Homeless Solutions, and what is needed there? This comes from Stephanie.
Okay, I'm going to talk real fast because this is a very tough question. It's very multifaceted, and I think it's approached with one strategy, and that one strategy is housing first, and that cannot work for all facets of homelessness. There is homelessness, there's mental health problems with addiction, and then we also have vagrancy that is going to be addressed in different ways. We are underfunding homelessness. It's no doubt about it. Under 1% of our general fund budget right now, homelessness, and we're not going to address it in that manner. I am happy to have been working with Mayor Pro Tem over the past year, and we're bringing an LGBT homeless youth transitional housing and permanent supportive housing with wraparound services. And we're going to start being more innovative with our housing dollars from that 2017 bond to start giving more resources to marginalized and more individualized populations spread out throughout our city. Those will be in District 7. I also believe that we have to be willing to invest more in mental health and stop passing the buck. Too many of my colleagues make comments to the tune of, that is the responsibility of the county. Well, that to me is lazy governance. We have residents who are unsheltered that deserve a quality of life and deserve their leaders to be looking for solutions to get them out.
Thank you so much, Adam. And Calvin, we'll turn to you next. As a quick update, our next question comes from Joel Wassinger. So please be on standby to come off mute and join us if you are able to. Calvin, you have the last response on homelessness. What is your plan for reform of the Department of Homeless Solutions? What is needed there?
We got to figure out first why they're homeless. I have some people that are veterans and they're homeless, and they may just be going through an episode. Then we have people that are on drugs that are homeless. And then we have people that are underemployed that are homeless. We got to figure out how to best serve those three areas to get them in housing. And then in addition to that, let's be innovative. Let's figure out how to get them off of that housing. Let's make sure that that housing is temporary so that we can deal with that same unit that we're using for the homeless to be used by somebody else 6 or 8 months down the line, because we did the work on the front end to not only get that person some shelter, but we created a situation where they start getting the services that they need, which means you got to partner with the VA, which means you got to partner with some of the employers to see if you can get these folks jobs. You know, you got to partner with the people who provide drug treatment programs. As long as using the city dollars, there are a lot of private dollars that you can mix with some of the city dollars to deal with some of the issues that the homeless are having. You don't want them to stay homeless. You want the homelessness to be a temporary situation that they can move on from. And I think if we start looking at it from that standpoint, then you'll have more resources to move them in and out of homelessness, and we'll have less of it. That's the key, to have less homelessness to begin with.
Thank you, Calvin. Now we're going to turn the floor over to Joel Wassinger. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Joel. But Joel, go ahead.
Close enough. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. The city of Dallas has a troubled racial history. And for instance, Dallas PD continues to demonstrate that they're willing to casually end Black lives. What do you see as the 2 or 3 top manifestations of racism directly emanating from City Hall? And what are your specific plans to address them?
And Adam, you're first this time. His question, what do you see as the 2 or 3 top manifestations of racism emanating from City Hall? And what are your specific plans to address?
Well, could you repeat the question? Because it started off with direct reference to DPD and then to a direct ask about City Hall.
No problem. Joel, go right ahead.
City Hall or DPD?
Joel, go right ahead.
Sure. I'll just repeat it. The city of Dallas has a troubled racial history, and for instance, Dallas PD continues to demonstrate that they're willing to casually end Black lives. And just to clarify, I see that as something that's, that's a manifestation coming from City Hall. And
Sure.
so, whether or not that's one of the 2 or 3 top issues that you see, that's the top manifestations of racism that emanate from City Hall, what do you see as those, and what are your plans to deal with them?
Sure. Sorry, I was confused on it. I do believe that you hit the nail on the head when there is, of course, race relations that need to be addressed that are ingrained systemically. I think one of the most glaring issues that we have are the organized labor that we have within public safety specifically. We have 3 different associations for both fire and police that are designated by race. That's because we are still adhering to practices that were implemented at a time when people of color were not accepted into the mainstream association of the police and or fire. This is one very tangible, clear example to give in practices that the city of Dallas has become complacent in. It's absolutely unacceptable for it to be broken down in memberships based on race. And I think that speaks volumes in our city. It's going to be really hard to attack progress when that's the narrative that we are facing. Other than that, I believe that we have TC Broadnax is extremely.
That is time.
Thank you so much, Adam. We'll turn to Calvin. The city of Dallas has a troubled racial history, and DPD continues to demonstrate they are willing to casually end Black lives. What are the top 2 or 3 examples of racism at City Hall, and what are your plans to address them?
The first thing we got to do is stop the profiling. The racial profiling has to stop. I mean, we got to stop that first. The second thing we got to do is to admit there's a problem. At City Hall, about half of that horseshoe, a little bit more of that horseshoe, they think that there's not a problem with race and policing in Dallas. We need to cut that out. We need to admit that there's a problem. It's like being a drunk. If you can't admit that there's a problem, you're not going to get any better. So that's the first thing. That's one of the things we got to do. And we got to make sure that we stop letting the police police themselves all the time. Because when you have situations where somebody is killed and you have officers coming in and doing investigations and doing stuff, and then looking at situations and saying, oh, I'm going to hide this, or I'm going to cut this camera off, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. We got to cut that out. We can't allow things like that to happen. And the last thing we got to talk about is make them realize change is coming. This will not continue. My people are not going to continue accept getting shot. We're not going to accept getting killed. We have kids. We have mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. We're not accepting that anymore. That's not an option. You can either deal with accepting the change, or we're going to make that change happen. We can no longer sit back and say everything is fine just how it is. No, we have to go in and make that change. So we got to stop the profiling, admit there's a problem, and then start to address it. Because one last thing, look at the lawsuits. Look at the amount of money that's being paid out when somebody's getting killed, and then look at the deterioration of relationships that happen in the community when you kill Black lives. When you kill somebody Black, the whole community looks at you, and now the positive relationship that you could have with law enforcement, you can't have anymore.
Thank you, Calvin. And we'll turn to Changa. What are the top 2 or 3 examples of racism at City Hall, and what are your plans to address them?
I thought
Changa, your 90 seconds will begin when you begin talking. Don't worry.
Okay, so the clarification sounded like the question changed a little bit. It was
No, I'm sorry, it hasn't. I'll repeat it from the top. The city of Dallas has a troubled racial history, and Dallas PD continues to demonstrate they're willing to casually end Black lives. What are the top 2 or 3 examples of racism at City Hall, and what are your specific plans to address them?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that the city manager's office, along with certain members of the council, have really put a lot of barriers in the way of oversight with the Dallas Police Department. As you guys know, I, without being a city council person, was able to make the city council count to 8 and pass the oversight, Office of Police oversight in 2019. And that, we can start there. It's underfunded. Every time it comes to the city council with recommendations, including the incumbent has pushed back on them about their recommendations, and then turn around and use their recommendations to pass policy with the police department. So first of all, we got to stop this police-centric, because our policing in America and in Dallas as well is inherently racist the way it's working now. We have police chiefs that will admit it as well. So we need to get past the influence that the Dallas Police Department has over the city manager's office, as well as the members of our city council. It's too police-centric. We need to fully fund the oversight board. I'm the Office of Police Oversight, and give them their full power. The city manager's office is currently blocking them to even be able to investigate the protest complaints that came off the bridge this summer. And the public doesn't even know that. So I think that's one of the big manifestations right there.
Thank you so much, Changa. And big thank you to Joel for that question and great discussion from our candidates. And now I'll turn it over to Tyron for our very last question of the night.
Alrighty. This question is from Anita, who couldn't be here with us. It's a question about non-citizens in Dallas. Do you support non-citizen residents being on all city council boards? What will you do to ensure that boards are representative of all Dallas residents? Calvin, you'll go first.
That's actually a tricky question because you want people on the board that are legally here, but you have an issue where everybody's not legal in America, and you don't want that community not to get the service. I prefer people that are citizens to be on those boards, because if you're not a citizen, then you are actually subjecting yourself to, number one, extra scrutiny. You're subjecting yourself to not maybe even being able to get your papers or to get your citizenship situation done the right way, but you want to be inclusive. I think that there's a way that maybe you can have the boards and then maybe have some of the non-citizens be on the committees, but you really need to have the citizens as a part of those boards, because I think not just for the citizens' sake, but the non-citizens' sake, if you're someone on the board and you're a non-citizen, you're making yourself stick out like a sore thumb. You could be hurting yourself in terms of being able to get your citizenship. I think that you should allow the citizens only to be on the boards, and then allow the committees that come out from those boards to have non-citizens on them.
Thank you, Calvin. Adam, I'll repeat the question for you. Do you support non-citizen residents being on all city council boards? What will you do to ensure that boards are representative of all Dallas residents?
Yes, I do support it. And I don't think it's a hard question at all. I think that it's a yes or no question. And I think that I'm baffled a little bit of what I just heard. I think that it was almost the equivalent of white colonialism coming into a black community and saying best for them. For a citizen to say what the best route for someone else's road to citizenship should be. If you're a tax-paying resident in our city, then you have the right to every other quality of life than any other resident of this city. That doesn't matter what papers you obtain. That doesn't matter what journey you went on to get here. That doesn't matter what anyone else's opinion is of what process you should have went through. I'm still dumbfounded, to be honest. But what I will say is that we are a welcome city here in Dallas. And not only will I support the participation of inclusivity of all Dallasites, despite your status documentation, I'm also a huge supporter of us stepping up when the federal government reached out to make sure that we could give a much more humane situation to a bunch of children who have been put into a very, very bad circumstance because of things that are completely out of our control. So I will absolutely continue to fight for those who don't have people to fight for them.
Thank you, Adam. And Changa, finally to you, do you support non-citizen residents being on all city council boards? What will you do to ensure that boards are representative of all Dallas residents?
Definitely, unequivocally, I support undocumented folks being able to serve in this city, especially if they work, pay taxes here, and put their money into the city just like everybody else. 25% of our city is immigrants. That's like 300,000 people, probably more than that. But I would say we need to even go further, right? Councilman mentioned the convention center, and we can do better, you know. And let me add too, there were too many barriers, and it was too hard to get the amendment passed to have folks, undocumented folks, sitting on the council. I mean, on boards, commissions, and city service. And you know, we had to push the councilman really hard to make that happen. So I mean, I think that the council needs to do better. We can do better about what we're doing at the convention center, and that we need to include groups that have been on the ground working on these topics before. Right now, they got the wrong organizations running the convention center, and it's showing. And we got to remember, it's not just a pipeline to prison; it's a pipeline of deportation too, going on in Dallas. And so we need to stop the pipeline of deportation. We need to sever the ties with ICE, with the police department, because everybody who works and lives here and puts money into this community shouldn't have to have the threat of going to work and being rounded up at their business and then being deported out of the country. Like, it's just time up for that. Dallas is way behind on that, being the city with this big of an immigrant population. And I'm not just talking about South Americans either. My father.
Thank you, Changa.
Nigeria, and I understand
Changa, we are at time. I apologize. Thank you for your response. What I'd like to make sure that I clarify for the audience, this question has to do with non-citizen residents. We want to make sure that we let y'all know that there are people who are here legally that are non-citizen residents. I believe Dirk Nowitzki is one. I don't believe that he's a U.S. citizen yet, but he is a resident. So I know that that is an issue that is happening here in Dallas, but we did want to make sure that we specified that for our listening audience. All right, so one more thing. My co-moderators have insisted that I've been entirely too serious, so I need to ask y'all just one more question that's a little bit serious. In 30 seconds or less, I need y'all to tell me, what is your go-to karaoke song? We are going to start with Changa.
My go-to karaoke song probably would be Fire and Desire by Tina Marie and Rick James, if I got somebody to do it with me. You know what I'm saying? If not, I'm probably going to do UGK, Pimp C, UGK, you know, something like that.
Alrighty. Calvin, 30 seconds or less, your go-to karaoke song.
Well, back in high school, I actually posted a picture of my hot top fade that prevented my graduation cap from touching my forehead. And back then, I was Big Daddy Kane. So there's a song called Ain't No Half Stepping, where he's just up there just ripping out a rap, and he's so cool. He is so in control. And in karaoke, that's my song. That's my go-to. That's my domino song too. So I get in my mode when I hear that song. So Ain't No Half Stepping by Big Daddy Kane. So she understands what I'm talking about.
I'm with you too.
All right, Adam, you actually got kind of like a whole minute to think about it. Go to karaoke song, 30 seconds or less. Go.
So I definitely pick depending on what the vibe is like when we're doing karaoke. But I really like to get Hey Ya by Outkast because I usually get a lot of participation from the audience. And I just want to say something. This isn't to dig at anyone, but this is something that I take very serious. So I want to spend a second of this answer and say that I have frequented the convention center. There has not been one child that has been deported. We have zero collaboration with ICE that is not in the city of Dallas. And I just want to make sure
and Adam, we're at time, and that's actually off the topic of the karaoke question. I'm so sorry.
It doesn't matter. This ain't Robert's rules.
I am a moderator, though, and I have to ask you to let's stay on topic here. But we are about to wrap up. Gentlemen, I would like to thank all of you for coming tonight. Calvin, Changa, Adam, it was a great conversation. We appreciate hearing your answers. That is going to conclude our District 7 Candidate Forum from Reform Dallas.